Okay, so we've all been there.
Yep.
Like that used car just kind of sitting there in the driveway. And it feels like every day that it doesn't sell, it's like money just draining away.
Hmm.
But now, like, imagine that instead of like an old hatchback, it's like a massive commercial truck. We're not talking about like a couple $100 here. We could be talking thousands.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of problem that Truckhive is tackling, but like on a much bigger
No,
scale.
it's like they took that used car headache and they were like, let's just like inject it with like a huge dose of, logistics industry adrenaline or something.
For sure.
So for our listener today who, might not be, spending their days navigating the world of like 18-wheelers and stuff, what is it that makes selling a commercial vehicle so uniquely challenging?
I think the biggest thing is time, right? Because in the trucking world, if a truck isn't moving, it's not making money. So like every single day that it takes to sell that vehicle, that's directly impacting a company's, bottom line. And then you got to think about the security too. We're talking about really valuable assets here, and they're often parked in places that are like pretty vulnerable. So they're like prime targets for theft.
And then on top of all that, we can't forget the sheer like complexity of all these transactions. I mean, we're talking about specialized equipment, financing, and honestly, a ton of paperwork.
Yeah, you're telling me this isn't like just putting a sign on it and like waiting for the right person to stroll by.
Exactly.
The whole thing.
So this is where Truckhive steps in, right?
Hmm.
And they've got this pretty bold claim. They say they can guarantee a sale within 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I mean, that's unheard of in an industry that is like notorious for these like really long drawn out sales. So what's their secret weapon?
Well, they've got this park and sell program.
Okay, so walk us through that. Like, how does that actually work? What is that?
So it's actually pretty simple. Instead of dealing with all the like traditional hassles, you just bring your truck right to Truckhive's yard. It's secure.
Oh, I bet it's not just any parking lot, right? It's all about location, 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 right?
You got it. They've put it in a really strategic place, like a high traffic area where they know that they're going to get a lot of potential buyers seeing it. And that's actually like key to their whole 2-week guarantee. They're putting it right in front of the right people.
Okay, so it's like prime real estate, but for like the commercial vehicle world.
Exactly. But it goes way beyond just the location, though. They get that security is like a really big deal for sellers. So they've put a lot into making it like seriously secure. Like we're talking cameras everywhere, 24/7. There's people patrolling the grounds, and they even have guard dogs just to like add that extra layer of.
Okay, so you're talking prime location, top-notch security. This is going to cost like an arm and a leg, right?
And this is where Truckhive kind of flips the script because it's completely free for the seller.
Wait, really?
Yeah, no hidden fees, no commission from the sale price.
Okay, see, now that's where I'm like, okay, what's the catch? Because free sounds a little too good to be true, especially in the business world.
Right. But you got to remember what we were saying before about time, right? Like time is money in the trucking industry. And a lot of those more traditional methods, that could mean weeks, if not months of downtime for a vehicle. And during that time, it's just like money down the drain. So when Truckhive eliminates all that dead time and they can guarantee a quick sale, suddenly free doesn't sound so crazy, right?
Yeah, it's like they figured out how to turn that time saved into straight profit.
There you go.
That's smart.
And that's just the start. Remember we were talking before about them having this whole ecosystem kind of built around this park and sell program?
Right.
Yeah, so like a really key part of that is the Truckhive marketplace.
Oh, yeah, the marketplace. So it's not just a really nice parking lot. It's like it's a digital showroom, but for, big rigs.
Exactly. Think of it kind of like Amazon, but it's exclusively for the logistics industry, right? It's just a completely focused platform, and it's all about trucks, trailers, machinery, like all the big stuff.
Which, for our listener who might be picturing like an endless Craigslist page right now,
Yeah.
that's a big deal, right?
Hmm.
Because trying to find like a very specific excavator part in a sea of like, used furniture is not really efficient.
Yeah, it could take you forever.
Yeah.
But Truckhive, they streamline the whole process. So if you are selling, you're getting your product in front of the right people. And if you're buying, you don't have to sort through a million things that you don't need. You know what I mean? It's all right there. It's categorized. You can search it. It's tailored.
So you park your truck in their lot. It's featured on this like very specialized marketplace.
Go.
What about the actual like selling part of it? Is that something that Like the owner still has to do themselves?
Yeah. That's the great part. They've streamlined that too. Truckhive has this like end-to-end service. So they're integrated with their park and sell program, and they handle everything from like advertising it to showcasing it, managing any questions that come in, the negotiations, all the paperwork.
Wow. So it really is like a hands-off, hassle-free kind of experience.
They try to make it as easy as possible.
So they don't just stop there, though. They also have this Truckhive Academy, which seems like a whole other, like, dimension to what they've got going on.
You're right, yeah. The Truckhive Academy is where they really switch gears from like just doing transactions to actually empowering people who are in the logistics industry.
Okay, so tell me more. Like, what is the Academy all about? And how does it, like, tie into this whole ecosystem that we've been talking about?
Well, it all kind of comes from the fact that they've been in the industry, right? So they've seen it. They've recognized that there's this gap in knowledge, especially for people who might be interested in getting into logistics. They might have the money, they might have the drive, but they don't know the ins and outs. It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like they're not just selling these trucks. They're trying to, like, build up the people who are actually going to be a part of,
Yeah.
like, moving this industry forward.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And they're not just like doing some cookie cutter course, you know?
Uh-huh.
What's really cool, I think, is how much they're focused on like making it real world practical.
Yeah, you're talking about their whole case study thing, right? I was reading
Yeah.
about that. Like,
Yeah.
they really go in depth with, like, these big names like Imperial Logistics, DHL.
Exactly. It's not just theory. They're learning from the giants, you know? So you're
Yeah.
getting like an inside look at how these companies actually operate. What are their strategies? What's worked for them? What hasn't worked, you know?
That's got to be so valuable, to have access to that kind of information,
Oh, absolutely.
like a master class in, like, logistics management.
And that's what makes the Truckhive Academy so different, I think. They're bridging that gap, right, between what you learn in a textbook and what you actually need to know to, like, get out there and make it work.
And it all comes back to their main goal, right?
Yeah.
Like simplifying how this whole world of logistics works, buying, selling, even building a whole business around it.
You got it. It's all connected. They've got this really smart system, and each part of it, like, supports and strengthens the other parts, you know?
So far we've been talking a lot about, like, the positives, right? And it sounds pretty impressive, but, like, every business, I imagine they've got to have their challenges too. So, like, what are some of the hurdles that they might run into? What do they have to watch out for, maybe down the line?
Well, I mean, you hit on one earlier, right? That 2-week sale guarantee. I mean, it's a great promise, but to actually keep that promise when you're talking about something as unpredictable as, you know, commercial vehicles, that's not easy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
this is an industry that it goes up, it goes down, you know? So what works when everyone wants a truck might not work when, you know, things slow down.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's one thing to guarantee a quick sale when, like, demand is really high. But what happens when, the market kind of shifts?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Like, how do you adjust? So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that guarantee going, especially when things, you know, maybe aren't so great in the market.
Yeah, for sure. And then you got to think about the competition, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when somebody comes up with a good idea, other people are always trying to copy it.
Oh, yeah. They've got that first mover advantage right now. But that doesn't mean anything if you just sit back and relax, you know? They're going to have to keep innovating. If they want to stay ahead of the curve, they're going to have to, like, always be thinking about what's next.
Right, like a game of chess.
Exactly.
You got to be thinking,
Yes.
like, a few moves ahead all the time.
Always.
So speaking of, like, expanding and thinking ahead, they've got their base in Rinfield, Benoni, South Africa. So for our listener who maybe isn't up on their South African geography, what's the big deal about that location?
Benoni, it's like a logistical dream, right? It's this major hub. It's right by highways and transport routes, so it's easy to get to. No matter where you are, it's pretty much like a straight shot.
Okay, so it's like their physical location is like the central nervous system of what they're doing.
Exactly. And for the people who are part of their academy, I mean, being in Benoni is huge. They're right in the middle of it all. So they're not just learning about it, they're seeing it in action, you know?
They're getting like a firsthand look.
Yeah, like this is how it works in the real world.
So they've got this like perfect setup, right? You've got the buying, the selling, the academy, and it's all happening in a place that's like already a hot spot for logistics.
You got it. Which kind of leads to the next question, right?
Yeah.
Can they do this somewhere else? I mean, can Truckhive take this model and like pick it up and plop it down in a new market, maybe even like go global with it.
That's got to be tempting, right?
Mm,
I mean, who doesn't want to like take their success and like share it with the world?
right. But like we were talking about before, every market's different, So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, this worked here. Let's do it again over there. You got to think about the rules, the culture, even just like how the industry already works in that place.
So world domination, or should I say like world logistics domination,
Yeah.
it's not as easy as just showing up with a flag and saying, we're here.
Haha. No, not quite. You got to know the lay of the land.
You do.
It's more about understanding how to adapt, because what works in one place might not work in another. And that's where I think their knowledge and their willingness to try new things, that's really going to be, make or break for them.
Right. It's like they almost have to learn a whole new language, but like the language of logistics in that specific place.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of making me think, though, this whole idea of like specialized marketplaces, like we're just so used to going online and there's like a million different places to sell everything, right? But like, could this idea, this like really focused approach be something that like shakes things up in other industries too, you know?
Oh, totally. Just imagine, like, instead of trying to find that, like, perfect vintage record player and having to, like, wade through all these algorithms and everything online, there's this place that's just for that. Like, it's all collectors. It's all, like, the real deal.
Right. Or like, what about a place that connects like artists directly with galleries? Like specifically the galleries that are looking for their kind of art, you know?
Exactly. No more getting lost in the shuffle.
It just cuts out all the noise.
Right. Exactly. Like the right buyers, the right sellers, all in the same place. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Truckhive and it seems like that's a big part of their success, right?
Yeah.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, like when everything is about being like bigger and broader online,
Hmm.
but maybe sometimes it's about like simplifying, getting back to the basics.
It all comes down to solving the problem, right?
Yeah.
Truckhive, they saw this issue in the commercial vehicle market and like they really went for it. They've got the park and sell, they've got the marketplace, they've got the academy to get people ready. It's not just one thing. It's like this whole like system that they've created.
It's like they took a step back and were like, okay, how can we make every single part of this better? You
Yeah.
know?
Right. And that's something that anybody can learn from, I think. It's like, don't be afraid to question how things are done, even if everybody else just accepts it. Look for those things that maybe could be better. You know what I mean?
Because maybe, just maybe, there's a truck hive solution just waiting to be discovered, right? But in a totally different industry.
Exactly. Like sometimes the best ideas, they come from looking at the things that we just take for granted and saying, well, what if we tried something different?
I love it. Well, that's Truck Hive, everybody. Such a cool story about like innovation and really smart thinking, I think. And thank you so much to our expert for, taking this deep dive with us. Really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us.
Oh, anytime. I always love seeing companies like this that are really like, shaking things up, trying something new.
And for our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Hopefully it's got your wheels turning, maybe even inspired you to question some things in your own world. Because you never know, that next big idea might be right around the corner. And hey, maybe it'll all be thanks to a company in South Africa that specializes in, selling used trucks. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.